The vanishing roommate, Tom, had always been a creature of habit. He woke up at 7 a.m., brewed his coffee, and read the news before heading to work. Sharing his apartment with Mike had been easy. Mike was quiet, tidy, and kept to himself most of the time. Their routine was simple, and their friendship, while not overly deep, was comfortable. That's why, when Mike didn't return home one evening, Tom found it odd. At first, he assumed Mike had stayed out late with friends, or maybe even met someone new. But by the second day, Tom grew concerned. He tried calling Mike, but got no answer. His texts went unread, and the last message Mike had sent, "Heading out for work, see you tonight," remained the final word from him. By the third day, Tom decided to call Mike's workplace. The woman on the other end sounded puzzled. "Mike hasn't shown up for work all week," she said. "Is everything okay?" Tom's stomach tightened. He filed a missing persons report with the police, but they didn't seem overly concerned. "Adults disappear all the time," the officer told him. "He'll probably turn up." That night, Tom sat in the living room, staring at the empty couch where Mike usually sat. The apartment felt eerily silent. He tried to distract himself by watching TV, but every creak of the floorboards made his heart race. He could swear he heard faint footsteps coming from Mike's bedroom. The return on the fourth day, Tom woke to the sound of the front door opening and closing. He shot out of bed and ran to the living room. There stood Mike, casually kicking off his shoes. "Mike, where have you been?" "I was worried sick. I even called the police," Tom exclaimed. Mike looked at him confused. "What are you talking about? I've been at work." Tom froze. "No, you haven't. I called your office. They said you haven't shown up." Mike shrugged. "Must be some mix-up. Anyway, I'm here now. Relax." He grabbed a glass of water and disappeared into his room. Tom stood in the hallway, trying to make sense of the situation. Something felt off about Mike. He seemed different. His usual cheerful demeanor was replaced with something colder, more distant. His eyes seemed darker, and his movements felt slightly wrong. The disturbances over the next few days, Tom noticed strange occurrences around the apartment. Doors that he was certain he had closed were left open. Lights flickered, and the TV turned on by itself in the middle of the night. Mike's behavior grew increasingly peculiar. He spent most of his time in his room, emerging only to eat or use the bathroom. When Tom tried to talk to him, Mike would give vague answers or ignore him entirely. One night, Tom decided to knock on Mike's door. "Hey, Mike, you okay in there?" he asked. There was no response. Tom knocked again. "Mike?" Finally, he heard shuffling, and the door creaked open. Mike's face appeared pale and gaunt. "What do you want?" he snapped. Tom took a step back. "I just wanted to check on you. You don't seem like yourself." Mike stared at him for a long moment before slamming the door shut. The discovery unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, Tom decided to investigate. While Mike was out, or so Tom assumed, he entered Mike's room. It was dark, and the air felt unnaturally cold. Tom rummaged through the drawers but found nothing unusual. Then he noticed a small notebook on the desk. Flipping through it, he found page after page of nonsensical scribbles and strange symbols. But one page made his blood run cold. It was a list of dates. Each date was marked with a single word: return. The most recent date matched the night Mike had come back. Before Tom could process what he was looking at, he heard the front door open. Panicking, he shoved the notebook back where he found it and slipped out of the room. Mike walked in, his eyes immediately locking onto Tom. "What were you doing in my room?" he asked, his voice low and threatening. Tom stammered. "I was just looking for my charger. Thought I might have left it in there." Mike didn't respond. He just stood there, staring, until Tom retreated to his own room and locked the door. The nightmares that night, Tom had vivid nightmares. He dreamt of Mike standing over his bed, whispering in a language he couldn't understand. In the dream, Mike's face twisted and distorted, his eyes turning black as voids. Tom woke up drenched in sweat, only to hear faint murmuring coming from the living room. Gathering his courage, he crept out to investigate. He found Mike sitting on the couch, staring at the blank TV screen and muttering under his breath. "Mike?" Tom called softly. Mike's head snapped toward him, his eyes wide and unblinking. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Mike smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Go back to bed, Tom," he said, his voice eerily calm. Tom didn't need to be told twice. The truth. The next morning, Tom decided he couldn't